Disclaimer: this product was provided to the author to do a review. All opinions are 100% authors and authors alone. For more information, visit bit.ly/dbdisclose.
Hey guys, this is your friend Iggy back again. Today I'm going to show you guys how to build a machine around the BIOSTAR, the racing series Z370 GT6 motherboard. Along with that, I'm going to be building it inside of the Fractal Design Define R6 case, utilizing the EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti FTW3 video card, along with the Be Quiet Straight Power, the 1000 watt power supply, with the Arctic Freezer eSports 33-1 CPU cooler, with the Intel Core i7-8700K processor, along with the Patriot Viper RAM. Then afterwards, I'm going to be installing the OS and everything on this machine onto the Ionki 512GB SSD. And well, I'm going to do two different videos here. I'm going to first show you in regular speed, so those of you that don't know how to build a machine can learn from it. Then I'm going to be making another video, same video, just basically fast forward a lot of parts, edited out, so that you guys that already know how to build can just fly through it. I'm going to cater to both audiences here. And well, if anything, let's get started. Get over here real quick. So one of the first things you're going to need to remember, because a lot of us forget, sometimes we need to take the motherboard out, is we need to put the IO shield back here in the back of the PC. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead, and actually for this particular motherboard, some of them came blocked off, so let me go ahead and open the paths up real quick. All right, so now with everything opened up, just gonna go ahead, pop it in back here. Some of them take a lot of pressure to push in, and actually this one snapped in really easily. So I'm gonna pop it out and show you. So right here, you can see these little pieces sticking out. That's gonna be the part that snaps in right over here. So you just push it through. And that's it. Pretty simple, right? All right, now let's get to installing the motherboard itself. All right guys, so then before we actually start building the machine, or should I say putting the motherboard inside of the system, we're going to want to make sure that all these holes right here for the standoffs, they all line up on the actual case itself. Some motherboards actually bring a picture you can put in the case, and it lines up all the screws for you so that you know where to put all the standoffs. But this one, so there's going to be, for this particular motherboard, there's going to be one here, 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 and here. It's going to follow the ATX standard. Sometimes this standoff itself is not required on the ATX, so make sure that the motherboard you're installing does have it. In this particular case, the BIOSTAR Racing Z370 GT6 does. So cool thing about the Fractal Design Define 6 or R6 is it brings this standoff right here, which is basically a reverse standoff, so that the screw sticks out, and it's not really a screw, it's not threaded, but it sticks up and it shows you how to properly align your board. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and pop the board in here. Okay, and then so the screw might line up here, might line up here, until it lines up right here. The motherboard is not installed, so bam, that just popped out, and now we're good to go. And I'll show you a little bit closer. You can see that right here, it just pops out. So that's a pretty cool feature that the case provides. All right, so now let's go ahead and get started screwing all the 9 screws in. Actually, I believe it has 10. And because we have this here, we can go ahead and tighten all of the screws right up front, where I usually would say don't tighten them all till you have them all screwed in, because that might cause the board not to align correctly. So now let's move on to installing the CPU. Okay, so first off, we're going to remove this little cover here. Don't take this off unless you're going to actually install the CPU. If you take it off and damage any one of those pins, you voided the warranty. And that's not only with BIOSTAR, that's with any motherboard manufacturer, so be very careful. So to install the CPU, we're just going to go ahead and push this little arm down, pull it out, lift, and then slide it open. You see how that opens up? Okay, and so you're going to notice there's a little notch there and a little notch there that line up with the notch here, whoops, excuse me, with the notch here and the notch here on the CPU. This is the Core i7 8700K processor. We're just going to dump it right in here and match up the little cutouts there. The CPU is good, you know it's good, you just move it around and it's good. So we'll go ahead and lower this. You want to make sure that these little prongs slide under this right here, so just make sure it's down, and then just push this down, push it all the way down, and reverse like we did before. Pull away, push down, and release back under here to hold it in place. So now we've just installed a CPU. Now we're going to go ahead and install the RAM real quick. So the RAM here is going to be the Patriot Viper, 32 gigs, 2x16 sticks. So just make sure you don't touch any of these gold pins. When you get these are going to be all closed up. So we're just going to open up the closest one to the CPU. And then we're going to go ahead and put in the RAM. Now, there's only one real way to put in the RAM. You'll notice the notch is closest this way. Now, if you put it in this way, the RAM is just going to teeter-totter like that. So, because that little notch doesn't match up with that notch. So we're just going to go ahead and turn it around. Slide it in evenly on both sides and just push down. When you push down this notch and this notch, they're going to close in, locking the RAM in place. Alright, so we have one. So now we're going to skip a socket, or a slot I should say, and go to the third slot, open that up, and then again, just pop in the RAM. Alright, there we go. So now we've installed RAM. So all of you smart Alex might have thought, man, this guy installed the RAM wrong. I didn't. I did it right. Actually, I thought I did it wrong too, so I went back to go edit. I looked at the manual, and the manual says I wasn't wrong. On this board, you can install it in the first slot and the third slot, and it'd be dual channel, but you can also install it like you're supposed to in the second and fourth slot, and it's still dual channel. So let me show you the picture. Okay, so now just because, and then also let me show you the CPU Z, how it shows it. Now I'm going to show you the correct way to install it, the way I should have done it in the first place. I don't know what I was thinking, but let me go ahead and show you the right way. As I mentioned, on most boards, this is actually the incorrect way of installing it. So let me go ahead and correct that. Even though it does work, I'm going to go ahead and correct that. So I'm just taking out the RAM. So I'm taking out these pieces first, just pulling them back so that I can take the RAM out, because that locks it in place. Swap the slot from the third to the fourth, and then from the first slot to the second slot. Normally, if I were to do that, chances are it wouldn't have booted, should I say. On this board it booted, and then if it would have booted on any other board, it would have been in single channel. But this motherboard is a little bit more forgiving. It actually, on both sides, will keep it in dual channel. So I just wanted to update the video and show you that real quick. So now we're going to have to install, so now we're going to go ahead and install the Arctic freezer right in here. And I have to move the camera a little bit because we actually have to get to the back of the motherboard for a minute. So one sec. The Arctic freezer utilizes this back plate. So we're going to want to install this on the back of the motherboard. Thankfully, the Fractal Design Define R6 has an opening right in the back of the case. So you're going to want to match this hole on this plate to this screw right here. So we just line it up like this. Now, while we're doing this, when we flip it over, we're going to have to hold the back of this plate in place so that we can install it. Now, what I do may not always be the best idea. I've never had an issue with it. Temporarily, while I'm doing this, I just put a piece of tape right here and right back here. Maybe I'll just put another one right back here. So now when I'm done, I'm just gonna go to the back of this, take off all that tape. You need to make sure you do not leave it behind. You could potentially damage your motherboard while everything heats up. Okay, so now we're gonna flip it again, and now we're going to install the fan itself, or the heatsink. If you just bought the Arctic Freezer 33 Esports 1, it would have already come with paste on the bottom, and that paste is actually perfectly fine to utilize. Now, since I build a lot of different machines, I've had to wipe that a few times. So I use Thermal Grizzly Cryo Knot, works out very well, and I just put a little glop right in the center. Okay, and so now I'm going to go ahead and put that heatsink on. Okay, these are separate pieces here, but I've already had it screwed in, so I'm just going to keep it here for this video. So now when you put this on, so that it doesn't move all around, just go ahead and push it down a little bit so that it spreads itself. Okay, now that's going to spread evenly so that you don't have to wipe it down or anything along those lines. Now, in order to make sure that we get the pressure correct on all four sides, we're going to screw the screw in a little bit, not all the way. Then when we have all four screws in, then we tighten it. Also, okay, also, you're going to want to put the screw over here, then over here, then afterwards put one over here and one over here, crisscross it just like that. That way all the paste flattens correctly. Alright, now that we have all four in there, now we're going to go ahead and tighten all four of them up. I've already began by tightening that last one up. Alright, so now I'm going to not do it on camera, Now I'm going to let you make sure that you've actually removed all that tape. So I'm going to do that myself now. Now with all that tape removed, we're going to go ahead and put these brackets in for the heatsink, or should I say, sorry, for the fan. We're going to attach it to the heatsink. This is what allows the fan to actually stay in place. Okay, and now we're going to put the fan in place. So I like to put the fan with the cable all the way at the bottom. That way it's a little bit easier to maneuver and it kind of hides the cable. You could do it totally however you would prefer. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and connect this to CPU fan 1. This header right here on the motherboard itself. Okay, now we can push the excess cable through here, but we'll get to that a little bit later on in the video itself. So now one of the cool things about this motherboard is right over here where it says M2 cooling. That's actually where you're going to be putting the SSD. So it comes with its own little heatsink. We're going to go ahead and just open it up. Just remove these tiny screws. And then take this off. So now in order to use it, we're just going to have to peel this tape off. Again, very nice heatsink they included. Okay, and I'm going to be utilizing the WD Black 512 gig PCIe M.2 SSD. So I'm going to put it over here, and actually I'm going to need to take off this screw here. Okay, that's to lock down the SSD. Now I'm just going to go ahead and pop it right in here. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place. Comes in handy to have a magnetic screwdriver. One thing to note, everything I'm using in this video, I'm going to go ahead and link in the description below. In case you want to check it out, you want to buy it, you can. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take this tape off. And now I'm going to go ahead and line up the screw holes. And screw everything in place. Alright, so we've just installed an M.2 SSD. While we're here, we're just going to go ahead and install the EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 FTW3, excuse me. So the PCIe slots are covered, which is nice. That way they don't break off. So we just slide this right into place. Oh, and in case this is up, push it down. It's going to need to be down. It will lock in place. And just push it down. Alright, so now we've just installed the video card. We're just installing the hardware. After that, we need to plug in all the cables and everything, and we'll go through that in a second. Now we're going to come around the back of the case so that we can install 2 SSDs. So along the back of the case, we have 2 spots over here for SSDs to have them hidden. Now regularly, this panel right here in the Fractal Design Define R6 case is pushed out, and then there's about 6 trays right over here that you could put mechanical hard drives into. But for now, or of course SSDs, but I've actually moved it forward so that it wouldn't block any airflow along the front. And it's not going to block a ton, but it is going to block a little bit. And then also you'll notice I've taken off the tape over here. Okay, so now in order to get to these, which we can also put in the front on the power supply tray right over here, which actually I'm going to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and take one out. So just unscrew that, lift, and the tray comes out. And now I'm going to go ahead and install the Jojikiba SSD onto the tray. Okay. So then we just line up the holes here. See that right there? And then we do that along the other screws as well. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and just slide it into place. So I'm going to go ahead and put it over here. And just like we removed it, we're going to slide it right over here. Okay, so right into place. And now we're going to go ahead and use the thumb screw to just lock it in place. Okay. Pretty nice the way they did that, right? Okay, so then along the back, if you have two, you can put both in the front, or you could just leave one in the back. I'll go ahead and put the Samsung Evo 850 along the back. And we'll just screw that into place like we did before. Alright, and just like we did for the front, slide it into place. Oops. And then just screw it in. There you go. Pretty simple. Alright, so now coming along the back, we're going to be installing the Be Quiet Straight Power 11 1000 watt power supply. So we're going to end up screwing it in towards the bottom of the case right here. And to do that, we're just going to have to unscrew this little plate here. Okay, and this frame we're going to be using later on once we actually slide in the power supply, which the power supply itself is going to easily slide into the case like this, but it's going to be really difficult to actually put in all the cables that are going to connect to everything inside while we're down here, because you got to fit your hand in here and kind of guess where you're going. So I'm going to go ahead and connect everything we're going to need off camera, and then be right back to show you guys how I pop it in. So one sec. Now that we have all these plugged in, I'm going to go ahead and slide it into the case. So to do that, we'll just come around the back of the case. I'm going to go ahead and move all these cables out of the way. Now I'm going to grab all of these cables and just put them in here and pull them through with my hand. I'm doing right on this side. And now just slide it in. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and put this back. Just make sure that when you put it back, just sliding up the board, the power supply, Okay, now make sure when you put it back that you align all the power supply holes where they should be, and it looks like it fits in perfectly. One here, 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 here. So now I'm just going to go ahead, screw that in. Alright, and now I'm going to screw the power supply to that frame. If you need to push it in, just use your hand on the inside of the case to align it and just go ahead, screw it in. The power supply will slide itself back or forward wherever it needs to go. And like before, don't screw them in all the way tight, just to make sure everything is perfect. Just like right here, looks like we're going to go ahead and need to slide it a little tiny bit. There we go. Now, this being the last screw, we'll go ahead and tighten that one in. Alright, now we have to deal with the cable. This is the part I hate the most. Probably most of you do too. Alright guys, so that was just the first video, building the PC. The second video is going to be cabling the PC, so stand by.
Disclaimer, this product was provided to the author to do a review. All opinions are 100% authors and authors alone. For more information, visit bit.ly/dbdisclose. To have your product or brand showcased on Dragon Blogger, visit bit.ly/reviewmyproduct. Thank you for watching.